like to start by diving into your experience moving from Mexico City to LA and like specifically. So I know this was like 15 years ago, I think 13, 15.
15 years, 2010. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's been a
Yeah,
while.
so like, I would like you to dive into how this experience was for you, like, and to really just share what the feeling and the events were like. So like, also dive into like cultural shocks you had, maybe shocks you had. So like, yeah, changing the place you worked on, and yeah, just like share that experience.
Yeah, I had all of the above. It was, I think like the best way to describe it, it's a life-changing experience. I think like, to be honest, like you don't really realize what you're doing until you have done it. And or at
Mm-hmm.
least that was the case with me. I think when I decided to take the opportunity to come here, I wasn't really sure. Like at the beginning, like when I got the offer, I was debating on whether or not it was the right thing for me. Actually, to be completely honest, I was sure I was not going to take it. So I came
Mm-hmm.
back to, like, they flew me to LA. I had the interviews, you know, like you do all that process. Then I came back to Mexico, and then I was like, I'm not doing it. Like, it's crazy. Like, why would, like, I always said, like, why would someone move to another country? Like, if you can
Mm-hmm.
live in your own country with your friends, family, like I didn't see the point. Anyway, long story short, thank goodness for therapy. Went to therapy. I realized that one of the main things why I didn't want to do it is because I was afraid. I was just like a little bit afraid of like the unknown and like how things were going to be like if I moved. And then I guess like that was it. I was like, then you should do it. Like that's exactly
Mm-hmm.
why you should do things in life. Like I feel like if something is not scary enough, it's because it's not meaningful enough. Like you really don't care. And I think like I've always thought that if you're a little bit afraid of something, like that means that like it may be good for you. I mean, not crazy
Mm-hmm.
stuff, but like scary stuff. I'm not saying like go do like
Uh-huh.
scary things, but I do feel like fear it's a good indicator of care and careness. So anyway, I decided to take the offer, move to the US um, on a weekend. So I moved in
Mm-hmm.
February 22nd of 2010. And I think like the first 6 months were a lot of like discovery. I really didn't understand at the beginning like what it meant. Like they just told me like we need someone to lead the Nestle business at the agency, and then I was like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, it sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
I've been an account director for a while. It was a little bit of a change, but I think like I needed it in my personal life, so I was like, okay, let's do it. But then like you get here and you realize that you know nothing. Like you know nothing, you know no one, and then a lot of things change. I think like I mean, to start with, like I come from Mexico City. It's a big city, but like I think the thought in our minds is like it's one big city, and it's just everything is
Mm-hmm.
Mexico City. And then I got here, and the first few weeks I was on a corporate housing, but I needed to find a house in 4 weeks. And I was like, okay, like it's LA. And they are like, no, like we're actually based in Orange County. Like this is not LA. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
flew to LA. Like even like understanding like the difference of like here there are counties and each county has multiple cities and each city has multiple neighborhoods. In my mind, everything seemed like one big city. And I just didn't
Mm-hmm.
get it. I was like, well, I could live like whenever. But then I started like going out like around, where I was staying at, and it all felt like super artificial. Like if you've been, I don't know if you've been to Orange County. No
No, I
disrespect to
haven't.
Orange County, like
Mm-hmm.
you should come whenever you want.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's beautiful. It's beautiful, but it's just so pristine. Like it's just too perfect. And I come from a chaotic city, so I
Mm-hmm.
started like, I mean, they're not like there's not even people on the street. So it's like just super clean. Like imagine like I don't know if you ever watched this movie, The Truman Show. Um,
Oh yeah, I have. Uh-huh.
well, I literally felt like I was Truman in The Truman Show. I'm like, someone
Uh-huh.
is just gonna come tell me like, hey, this was a joke. Like like you are on a set. So I was like, I definitely can't live here. So I started driving every weekend, like around cities that were close to where I was working at. And I finally found Long Beach that seemed on the map like a good midpoint between my main client's office, my agency office, and a city that felt a little bit more like a city. It's still a beach city, but it does give you a little bit of diversity, a little bit of like movement, and like it's not as chaotic, because obviously it's hard to be, I mean, unless you are India or like some of those cities, like it's hard to be like as chaotic as Mexico City, but it at least felt alive, and that to me was super important. So I moved to Long Beach, but even that, like understanding like what does it take to move, I literally thought like I'm gonna go and I'm gonna, you know, like go to an apartment building and I'm gonna say I want to live here, and that would be it. And first thing you realize is if you've never lived in the US, you're not part of the matrix. And when you didn't grow up as part of the matrix, like you don't have any of those things that you need in order to just be part of the system. I had a social security number, but I didn't have like history, like in, you know, like credit history. I didn't have like anything like literally like on my name, nothing that would say like, yeah, this is a, you know, like safe enough person. So I think like even from there I started realizing, okay, like I really didn't know what I was doing. So finding an apartment, like finding a way to move around the city. California is one of those states that if you don't have a car, it feels like, I mean, obviously there's public transportation, but these cities weren't really built for public transportation. They were built more for like moving in a car. So getting a car, not being able to buy a car until you get a driver license, not being able to get a driver license because you need to study for like a month, like to learn like the 120 pages of the manual to pass the 3 tests that you have to pass. Like, so everything, it's kind of like a process, very American. Like everything, it's a process. You just follow the steps. And that is like so not like Mexico City. So I think like...
Or like Mexico in general.
Or Mexico, yeah, exactly. Mexico in general. So I think like for me that was one of the first realizations of like, okay, like, yeah, like you move to another country, like it's not gonna be like as easy as just moving out of your parents' house, which I think is kind of like what you do in Mexico in general. Like you grow up, like you go to college, and then maybe you are like, okay, I want to live like on my own or with friends, and you move out of your parents' house, but with a lot of help and support and a network. When you move to another country on your own, which I guess like it's part of my experience, I moved on here single with no family, no friends, like you have no network, like you have no like net, period, like to support you. So if something happens, it's like, okay, you. And I think like that was one of the first learnings for me. It was like in the US, if you don't do it, nobody's gonna do it for you. So I kind of like started developing this thing of if it's not you, who, and if it's not now, when. And that kind of like became my mentality on like how to kind of like just keep going, because I moved on a Saturday and I started working on a Monday morning, 9 a.m. client office. I didn't understand anything, but I still had to deliver. So I think it was a little bit of like doing everything at a professional level at the same time of like just trying to do everything at a personal level, set up your own life. It was tough. I think like now I realize it was tough. I was in denial while I was going through it. Everybody asked you like, oh, how is it going? Like LA sounds super cool. And I was like, yeah, it's great, because it's great. Like it's fun and it's kind of like electric and it has some energy to it and like you're excited. But like, I think like you don't realize how tiring it is, like how, you know, like draining it is, like just to try to do it all at the same time. And I'm a perfectionist, so it's not also doing it, but doing it well. So it was a lot. It was a lot at the beginning, but I think it's been great. It's been like amazing 15 years. There was cultural shock to your question. Like there's a lot, especially I think at a professional level, like you start realizing that even how you start meetings is different. Like in Mexico, even like you get to a meeting and you're a little bit formal, but like that formality is understood and like you kind of like start a meeting and you're more real in a way, or at least that's how I felt. I started joining meetings here, and everything was like, Happy Monday, Happy Tuesday, Happy Friday. We're so excited to be here. And I was like, what is going on? Like, what are we excited about? Like, why are we excited? This is just a meeting. Like, I don't know. Like, it was just like, what's happening? But I think it's just part of the culture. Like, it's just very normal, like, to just kind of like build that superficial conversation at the beginning. And to me, it was like, this is so fake. And then you realize that it's not fake, it's just different. But I mean, I have a million examples, but I think like that one, like starting, like just the most normal thing, like opening a meeting was like, I'm opening the meetings wrong. And then I thought I knew English and I had no idea about like corporate English. And my pronunciation has always been a challenge. So I started having meetings and like telling people they needed to focus, and my best friend was like, focus, not focus. And I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, sorry. And things like that, you know, like you start kind of like, I feel like when you move to another country, or that was my feeling, you feel like your IQ automatically drops 50 points. Like the minute you step, you know, foot on the plane. And then you land and you're like, there goes another 50 points. Like, you know, like it's just kind of like you feel out of place for a long time. And then like you kind of like start building your own life and like making it your own and like making it your place. But it took a long time for me to feel like I was at home in the US. Like it's been 15 years.
So when did you feel that you started like actually, yeah, feeling it was a home for you and not just like a place you were starting to work at?
Wow, that took a long time. I have to be honest. Like I had a client back then that she used to tease me with the idea that I refused to acculturate. And I actually think I do. Like I do it like more conscious. I'm like, yeah, like I mean I've done a lot to understand and adapt and flex. But I think like there's a difference between adapting and flexing and knowing and understanding like things the way they are in a different place, that I think it's critical and you have to do it, versus changing who you are and like changing, you know, like things, your values and things that are important for you. And I think like it took a while for me to understand that difference, and then also to understand that you don't necessarily need to choose between one or the other. I started realizing when I moved that a lot of people do like this, I don't know, like they have this thing about, I'm here because it's better than there. So they kind of like start comparing and contrasting, and then the easiest way to feel comfortable in a new place is to basically trash the old place. And then just say like, oh yeah, Mexico, like it's so like noisy, or like, you know, like it's unsafe, or like it's like, I think it's just a way of like making you more comfortable with your own space. And I didn't want that. I love Mexico so much. Like I'm a champion for Mexico and Mexico City in particular. I could be an ambassador of the city. I'm always convincing people to go. I'm always telling them like, yeah, no, it's amazing. So it was very hard for me to say, yes, this is great, but it's not because Mexico is not great as well. Like it's more like a win-win and rather than an or. So it took me a while, and to be honest, like the first 2-3 years, I kept saying like I was just gonna go back to Mexico. Like I think in my mind I said, I'm gonna be here for a year, and then I'm gonna go back because that's where I grew up and that's what I love, and that's where my family and all my friends are at. And in my mind, it was a matter of, you just can't go back because you didn't make it. Like, just do well, like make it here. And once you can say like, yeah, I made it. Like, you know, like I was able to prove that I could, you know, I could work somewhere else. I could be successful somewhere else. Then you can go back. And then every year I would tell my boss like, I think this is my last year, like I'm going back next year. And she would be like, yeah, sure, yeah, you're going back. And I was like, no, I mean it, like I'm gonna go back. She was like, yeah, sure. And everybody told me it takes 3 years, and I didn't want to believe it, but I do think like it's kind of like magic, after your 2 years and a half to your 3 years and a half, everything starts to truly click. I think before then, you think you get it and you think you understand it and you think that you are under control, and you kind of are, but you haven't assimilated everything. I think like the experience is so big, or at least it was for me, that it takes time to truly digest everything and like to truly start understanding the difference between the culture, like all the differences on everything, and to actually start enjoying it. Because you need a year to at least get credit, like even like be able to get a credit card, open an account, like a true like bank account, like it takes a year and a half to feel like you belong, at least on paper. And then you start belonging on paper, you start finding like real friends, and then like that gets you to your second year, and then like you're like, okay, like, I'm kind of like enjoying here, I love my work. And then by the third year it's like, oh yeah, I'm actually enjoying it, like I like it, like it's not just like a job. I mean, it's never been just a job for me, I love what I do. But in my mind, that was the reason why I was here. I'm here because of work. And then after a while, you're like, well, I'm here because I actually like it. Like, it's not just work. Like, you start having a life here, or like wherever you move. And then I don't know, like 3 years became five, sorry, and then 5 became 7. Then I bought a house. Then like, I don't know, you start just getting into the matrix, and then it's hard to get out of the matrix. And then like you kind of like love it. Like you move from just liking it to loving it. And yeah, after that, here I am.
Do you think that that has to do with being in a place you enjoyed, at least, or that provided like enough things you could enjoy, as well as like doing something that you were enjoying? Like, do you think that these two things played a role in being in a state where you could adapt to be in that place? Because like my reference for this is my cousin. So he's a doctor, he lives in a small town in Germany, and he was born and raised in Querétaro. So just like for people listening, a smaller town in, well no, it's not a town, it's a smaller city in Mexico, well in Mexico. But like when he was there, he was dreaming of like going to this other big city, and so he came to Mexico City for university, and then he wanted to go to Europe, and he chose Germany. He was living in Berlin for a year, and then afterwards he found a job at this like small town, and he likes German culture to an extent, but he's also like young, and like he loves Mexico a lot. He likes like the lack of structure that we have in many things here in Mexico compared to Germany, for example. And like the place he's at is not really that great for him because he's more of a city guy. So even though he's been like there for almost like 2.5 years, it's been difficult for him to really adapt to a point where he's accepting the place he's at. So he's really just constantly thinking about like moving to a bigger city, whether that's like Berlin or Hamburg or Munich or whatever. But like that's the other reference I have. In your case, you moved to like this bigger area, so you didn't move like to a less known state in the United States. You moved to California and like to this big city. Do you feel that that played a role in like this process of adaptation?
Yeah, I think in a way, I think like it played a role. A couple things. One, it wasn't like a huge departure, like in the example of like your cousin, right? Like he was in a big city, he went to a small town. I think like I experienced that when I was studying abroad many years ago. Like I went from Mexico City to a super small town in Wisconsin. Like that was like wow. But that was more of like oh, okay, like it's temporary. So you actually enjoy like, oh, this is like a fairy tale, like like a small town, like lake, like the movies. I think when you move and you don't know, like, is it for real? Is it temporary? Is it forever? Having certain elements that are similar to where you come from help. Like, that did help. I think to me, what helped the most was 2 things. One, the agency and, like, the company that I work with or at had very similar values of what I value. So I think like that helped a lot. Like I enjoyed I love what I do, but I also care so much about where I do it. Like it's not just like what you do, it's like who you do it with, and like where you, like who you work with, like where do you work. And I think like that helped a lot because it's a very caring company, and I think like I just felt like I quickly felt like I had a place. And I think the other thing was that I felt challenged. And I think like your context is important, but at least in my case, being challenged has always been important to me. Like I feel like I get bored easily. Like I need like constant engagement. And I think challenge does that for me. And I think like it's part of the reasons why I love advertising as well, because it's like an ever-changing game. Like it's not just a routinary thing. I think it's because I'm routinary outside of work, so like it kind of like helps like to have a little bit of like dynamism like outside. And I think like that kept me just going. Like I think like it helped me just try to adapt. And I think like it's part of that. And in a way it also helped me that I kept going to Mexico, so I didn't feel like it was like a complete like, you know, like you were extrapolated from one place to the other. Like to me, like that aspect of keeping in touch with the people I love was super important. And I was fortunate enough to being able to go very often, like very often. Like my first year, I went 11 times in a year. So it was, you know, like it wasn't just like, oh, like I may just see them during the holidays. No, I actually went like almost once a month or like a month and a half. For like my first 2 years, I went a lot. Now I don't go as often. It's more of like the quality of the visits more than the quantity of the visits. But I think at the beginning I needed that, like just to feel like I hadn't lost, like I was mentioning before, like it wasn't like either this or that. Like to me it was always like a way of like adding to my life rather than subtracting from my life. And I think like that was important. Like I think like that's why I was able to enjoy the good parts as well.
No, yeah, sure. Psychologically, I think that it does help a lot to be able to be not in. I mean, that's not very constant, like going once a month or once every 1.5 months. But like, it's good to be able to like be meeting consistently with people you like used to know and to be hanging out with a lot, and also like just to be in places you already know, because like that way you can feel like this sense of like familiarity in some way, like I already know this place compared to like living in a new place that you have to fully adapt to. And you were mentioning your work, so I want to start like diving into that, and I want to do it by like talking something you mentioned before, so when we started recording, which is that like you, through this experience of like adapting to this new place, like, well, actually, before doing that, you realized that you had to do it because of like fear, because it was a fear that you had and you wanted to face it. And also like this part of your personality, which is like facing challenges. So how have these two influenced your career in advertising? And yeah, what has your experience in that industry been like? Just like give us an overview.
Well, I guess the quick summary is like it's been great. I've loved it. I've enjoyed almost every minute. I think it wouldn't be real if I said like I've enjoyed it all, but I've enjoyed a lot. I think like part of what I love in advertising is that it really pushes me like in areas that I wouldn't push myself unless I was, you know, like working in an area like this. I'm an introvert by nature. I'm shy by nature. More introvert than shy, but like a little bit of both. I'm not a super social person, so I think like it would have been easy just to go to a field where you don't need to interact with people, or you don't need to, you know, like be constantly presenting or talking to people, or like just kind of like push a little bit like the extroversion side of you. And I think like that has helped me in a way. Like I think like I could have just stayed in my shell, and it pushes me. And I think like in a way like it like I like it. I like to be pushed. It's a little bit of that contradiction of like when you're an introvert, like you don't necessarily enjoy connection all the time. Like you enjoy meaningful connections, but not every connection, or small talk and like, like just kind of like having to interact with a lot of people all the time. And it's a constant challenge for me. Uh, it's funny because nobody believes me. Like at work, nobody believes me. My clients don't believe me. They all tell me like, no, of course you're not. And I'm like, no, I'm performing. And I think like, not like I'm putting a show. It's completely different. I think it's more of like when you know that it's part of your job. And I read a lot about these, like, and a lot about introversion. Once you know that it's part of your basically responsibilities and something that you need to do as part of, like your basically like your work performance, it kind of like clicks in your brain as like this is just another thing I have to do. And I think like that's what happens with me. Like it just feels like another thing I have to do. And if it's part of my job and part of like something that I must do, then I do it. I don't necessarily do it on my personal life, like because I don't have to, but on my professional life, it just feels like, okay, yeah, like, like it's part of it. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I cannot lead or I'm not like, I don't enjoy leading teams or like doing what I do. I think like it just has open areas for me that are interesting and that I actually enjoy feeling challenged. And I think it's part of why I like advertising. As I was saying, I think like what I love about it is that you are always working on a different field or a different category. Like one day I'm talking about banking and the next day or even the next hour I'm talking about CPG and then I'm moving into government and then I'm moving into like I think like it just keeps your brain going and active, and that's what I really really enjoy about it. Like since I started many years ago. I started when I was a child. No, I started like more than 20 years ago. So I think like by now, like I can see, like that evolution. When I started, it was more about like obviously learning and, like just kind of like trying to understand the industry. But it was already putting me like in front of people and pushing like certain bottoms that I don't necessarily do in my personal life. So I think like it's from a career perspective, I feel like it's something good to do. Like at least it has helped me not to stay in your comfort zone and also not to only do things that you like or that you feel that you are good at. This is gonna sound a little bit repetitive to some people, but I feel like you shouldn't pick what you are gonna do or your career just because you are good at something. Like I think it plays a part, but I think it's more important that you enjoy it. And I think like you need to know yourself and know what brings you joy or like what brings you that self of accomplishment, because that will bring you joy. And in my case, I think it brings me a a sense of accomplishment every time I overcome my shyness or like my introversion, or every time I get to influence a decision or influence the course of something or launch a great like campaign or like make a product successful or see that my clients are like moving like their business results. I feel like that sense of accomplishment like keeps me going and active, but it's important to me. There are people that maybe like are not driven by the same things. I think it's important to understand what gets you going, like what are you driven by. And I feel like like as long as you connect to that, it's my case, like you can be 20-25 years in the same field and still feel motivated to keep going. Like I still love it. I still feel like I want to keep doing this for a long time. And I think it's not just because of the advertising side of it, it's what it brings with it that keeps me, I don't know, just engaged.
No, yeah, that's one of the topics that I actually wanted to get to, like your thoughts on, like if it was like black or white, what is, given your experience, better to choose for a career, like passion or like skills, which in some sense they are always related, because like through developing a skill you might like be very invested in it, and then like through that develop a passion for it. Or maybe with a passion you're like really into something, and with experience and practice you develop a skill. But like, yeah, so your experience overall is like, or your I don't really want to call it advice, but like, yeah, your view on it is to prioritize like passion for something over just skill. Because like,
Yeah.
here's my personal example for that. um Overall, I would say that like just taking school subjects, like to begin with the traditional thing.
Yeah.
What I was usually good at was like math and physics related stuff, so like science. And with that, I said like, okay, yeah, I will study engineering. Why not? Because it's like something that will be that will give me like many work opportunities, I guess. Something I do enjoy to some extent, and something I'm told that I'm good at. But like on the other hand, I've had this like vision for myself since I was very young of like creating different projects, participating in creating different businesses, and doing these things, which is not necessarily something that I have had the opportunity to prove in the more traditional path. So like basically school. I have had the opportunity to prove that to myself through like the projects that I have had, like the book blog and the small marketing agency that I created with it. But like that's a I wouldn't call it a problem, but more of a decision that I am facing, like at this stage of my life, like what I need to prioritize, like this skills that I was told that I have, or this other like bigger passion that I have. And yeah, I know that's just like a decision that I still need to make. But yeah, what's like your view on those two?
Well, I mean, you said two very important things. One, if it was black and white, right? If it was, it never is, right? Like, so that would be my first thing. I feel like there's always a scale of grays in between. But we tend to go into black and white to contrast things and like to just kind of like be able to make a decision. But I feel like there's always things in the middle. The other thing that you said, and that I agree, is that things are intertwined. And it doesn't necessarily need to be one or the other, but if I had to choose, I would choose passion. And I know it's harder, and I know it's not necessarily the conventional advice or point of view, because once you have a skill, you can master it, and it gives you a sense of confidence and safety. And I think like not everyone is risk, like oriented, or we all have different levels of risk management. The majority of people, or what I've seen, what I've experienced, is that there's more risk aversion than being prone to risk. So when you hear the majority of people going with like, no, go with skills, I think it has to do or is related to this idea of that will be safe. Like if you go with something that you are good at right now, you will do well. So why would you go and risk that for something that you like, or for a passion of you, if you already know that you are good at math and you can go and like just make a living out of it? And that is super respectable. I have nothing against it. I think for a lot of people it makes a lot of sense. Like go do something that you are good at, master it, and then just do it for the rest of your life, probably 9 to 5, repeat, and it's gonna like input and guarantee output. Perfect. I am I am passionate. So I think like I need passion in my life. I need excitement. I need to love what I do. And I think if you are one of those persons that is driven by enjoying what you do and like just loving, like your life beyond just kind of like performing, like a task, you're gonna miss that. And I think like there's a lot of skills that you can learn, but passion you can't fake. Like loving something. And I always say, like, to everyone that wants to join the advertising industry or the advertising world, it's not an easy industry. Like it's tough, like it's draining, like it has a lot of things that a lot of people would say like, oh my gosh, no, like you don't have, like yes, we have working hours, but we only know the time that we enter, not the time that we end. And it's kind of like a, like it's very well known about the industry. Not necessarily true all the time, but yeah, it's demanding. And if you don't love it, you're really gonna hate it. Like it's one of those where the black and white kind of like, like comes, like in play. And it's kind of true. Like you're gonna be miserable. Like if you don't love what you do, like at least in this industry. I think like there are other fields where it may be a little bit more in the gray, scale. So like you may like it, you may not, but you could still do it as long as you are good at it. So if you also feel like it depends on like what you are going after and what do you want to do in your life. I also feel like it's important to not miss or like misinterpret passion for being, like careless. I think like loving what you do is what makes the difference, but you still need the commitment. You still need to develop the skills. You still need to be good at it. Like, I don't think like passion will substitute not having skills or not having the knowledge or not having the commitment or the dedication and everything that comes with, like saying like, this is what I want to do in my life. I just feel like it helps in the hard moments. Because when you're in the high, good moments, like everybody's happy, right? Like everybody's like, see, it's perfect. I knew the skill, I'm going to do it. So when everything is going well, it's easy to say, of course, I made the right decision. But when you're going to the hard times, like to those moments of hesitations, to those moments of like, I'm working till 2 a.m., or when you need to work on a weekend, or when things aren't going well, when like you need to make one of those tough decisions at work, that's when like caring about it matters. That's when loving what you do matters, because I think it's what it's gonna take you through it. Like it's what it's gonna help you push through and like just keep going, because it kind of like reminds you like, oh, I love doing this. I had a similar case to your case. Like I was very good at math in school. I loved it. I actually thought I wanted to be an actuarian for a long time. I went to like in Mexico, like you go to the traditional like area 1, 2, or 3. I did area 1, like math and physics. And then I realized I wasn't as good as everyone else in that field. And to me, I've always been competitive. And I think it was important. I was like, I'm not as good because I'm not as passionate about it. I'm good at it. I understand it. I like it. I think I enjoyed math because it was just simple. It was logic. Like it was just like 1 plus 1, like, yeah, you have many ways to get to 2, but you will get to 2, It could be 1 plus 1 or 1.5 plus 0.5, but still equals 2. It didn't bring me joy. Like it was just like, yeah, I'm good at it, but I'm not. I could see my friends that really loved it. Like they were like super passionate about it, and they got deeper into like the whys, and like then like we get to calculus, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is probably a little too much. I like it and I can do it, but I didn't feel like, oh my gosh, yeah, this excites me. I think like that is very important. I wouldn't leave it on the side. If you can find something where you can do both. I was lucky enough to find a field where I can do both. Like I still do like the business portion, the math, like the finances, and like everybody that reports to me says like, wow, but you love math. And I'm like, yeah, I do. But I also love strategy, and I also love creative, and I feel like I love the human side as well. So that helped me a lot. Like I found a place where I could mirror, like just kind of like both things and merge them kind of. So I don't know if that even helped or if it made any sense.
No, it does. Yeah. What about these moments of like, yeah, the ones you mentioned of going through hard times where it doesn't really matter what you're doing, you're like anyways gonna be getting to those moments. But like as you said, you chose a path where you are doing something you enjoy, and so that gets you through those moments. Was like a personal example that you have, maybe like, yeah, just share a story like related to that with a client that you had or something like that.
So for example, one that it's fun and that it was good. Then I'll tell you one of the examples of that you go through that you are like, well, like nobody likes going through this. But um, we were shooting a campaign with a celebrity, an amazing celebrity. Um, and the whole thing was a social experiment about like daring to do something unexpected on your day to day. So we would stop people on the street and say, hey, like, would you dare having a cup of coffee with a stranger? And
Was it the Nescafé video?
yeah, it's a Nescafé
Yeah,
social
I was just
experiment.
I was just watching that before
Okay.
before our chat.
Okay, well, so we did that, right? Like, and obviously, like the majority of people said no, like I'm not gonna have a coffee with a stranger. Whomever said yes, like they actually ended up having coffee with Ricky Martin. So obviously, amazing experience. People would like, like just die. I got to experience that. I was in that tent, basically managing everything. It was amazing. I love the experience. It's fun. Like you enjoy seeing people. But then, in order for it to work, like we needed to release it 2 days after. Like it just because then people were gonna start talking about it. Like you want to make sure that you are the first one out with it. But that means you need to go through client approval, well, first editing, and then celebrity approvals, then client approvals, then legal approvals, then like send it to media to release it, like everything in a day and a half, which meant like we had been prepping for it for weeks. Then you go and you shoot on the day and you start super early. Like I think like our call time was 4 a.m. that day. Like get ready, go, get Ricky, la la la. You run, like you do all your stuff. You have the adrenaline, so that helps. Like you keep going. Finally wrap, and then it's like go edit. Like right now, right this second, and just edit through the night and make sure that you have it ready at 4 5 a.m. for the celebrity to review, to then send it to legal, to then send it, and you just keep going. And honestly, I think like unless you love it, at some point you say, hey, I need to sleep. Like you just say like I need to sleep. But we didn't. And I think like there's two things to it. We all love it, and second, I have a great team. And I love the people that I work with. So it was fun. Like we were, like having like what we call papas producción, which is basically like lace with, like Valentina and salsa inglesa and lime and all that all night. And just, I don't know, like you just keep going, like, but I feel like it's part of like enjoying doing something like with the people, like as I said from the beginning, like the people that you work with, and then also enjoying what you do. Because unless you enjoy it, everybody would tell you are nuts. And like, why would you stay up like 2 days in a row? I remember like literally I had a meeting with my client. She had flown in to Miami as well at 7 a.m. And I was still trying to get, like some of the adjustments from like Ricky's team, and then presenting to her, and then like making changes. And then we needed to send to legal in parallel. And then you have kind of like this rush of like, this needs to be released by end of day today. And it needs to be on air. We still say on air. I know it's not on air. It's been a while. It's not on air. By Monday morning. So I feel like this is an example. I mean, it's a fun example, and it was an amazing campaign, and I love Ricky, and I love his team, and I love Nescafé, and I love my clients, and I love the agency, and as you can tell, I love what I do because I really, truly like love them all, and I enjoyed it so much. But by the time that we got on a plane, like back to LA, I was crashing. Like I honestly, it's like, okay, it's been like 3 weeks, a month of prep. You release it, you get on a plane, and you're like, why am I doing this to my body? Why am I doing like, is this really the only way? And you start questioning yourself. And I think like it's right that you question yourself, like, hey, like, do you really need to do it this way? Like, could you have done it differently? Or what can we learn from this? And I think like it's in those moments when loving what you do makes a difference. Like if I didn't love it, I would have been like, you know what? You figure it out. Good luck. I'm gonna leave the editor do, like his job, and then he will send it to me, and then I'll review it. And if it's good, it's good. And if it's not, like, and then it wouldn't have been like as good as it was. It wouldn't have been as I strongly believe like it makes a difference. There's people that may think like the incrementality doesn't make a difference, and like who cares? I care. And I think it made a difference. And I think like it was a great campaign. I mean, we worked with him for 7 years, so that was one of the first ones. So I think like it really made a difference. So that's one of those cases. The not so fun is the pandemic. We all went through it. It changed how we work in many ways. But when it hit, I think like nobody knew like what was going to happen. So in the corporate world, when you don't know what's going to happen, you start kind of like making adjustments, and you need to just basically prep for the year and like just kind of like think like, are we going to make it? Are our clients going to continue to invest? Like what's going to happen? So we had to adjust. We had to make staffing adjustments. We had to, like downsize our team, and that was tough. And that's when you are like, I don't like. I mean, I think nobody enjoys letting people go. I at least can't imagine someone saying like, "Oh, I had a great day today. I had to let someone go." Like no one said ever. I think. It's hard. Like it's one of those parts that you are like, like I'm in advertising. I just could be in something like simpler, easier, a little bit more stable, like static, like in a way, like you don't depend on like the advertising. It's like very up and down. Like you are always kind of like managing on uncertainty. I think like that would be a big part of my job all the time, managing uncertainty. And you manage it to the best of your knowledge and as much as you can. But when a pandemic hits, you actually have to react. I think like that has been one of the most difficult moments in my career, because I love my team and I love the people that work in the agency. So looking at numbers, and even though I love math, numbers are numbers, right? And you can play with them and you can try to be creative and resourceful and like, what if we do this? What if we do that? But at the end, the bottom line is the bottom line, and it's hard. And I think it's in those moments where like you feel the pressure and you feel like, wow, this is a lot. But then you can hold on to the idea of, but it's worth it. I love it. I love this agency. I love this team. I can try to do my best and make the best decision possible. So I think like, I mean, I just contrasted two very like extreme examples of like true joy of having, like a dream campaign with a dream celebrity, with a dream brand. Like everything was like, oh, the dream team, it's amazing. And then a moment of like, if I could erase it, I would, like it wasn't nice. But here we are still after the pandemic where, like we all survived. But I think like you survive those moments better when you have a great team and when you enjoy what you do and when you enjoy the people you do it with, than if you don't and you just go with like, to your question before, the skill and like the safe aspect of things rather than the passion for it.
No, yeah, thanks for sharing those stories. And specifically with this, like, I'm thinking of some examples of people I have met either like through podcasting or the internet or sometimes traveling, who had like a big change in their lives, basically because they faced one of these moments, many of them because of the pandemic, where they were like doing something that they were, yeah, that they first got into because it was like a good opportunity, not necessarily something they wanted, like out of passion and out of like their authentic interests, but rather like through just the opportunity that there was. But then like when such an unexpected and undesirable challenge came, and once they were either let go by the company they worked for, or they were no longer able to do that or anything, they had a big change towards something that they actually enjoyed and that was not necessarily like the certain path or like the traditional things. Which, I mean, yeah, with this last story is what makes complete sense for me, because like when it's different to face challenges that you already expect, like as you were saying, the Nescafé campaign, which is like, you know that it will be hard. You already expect that, compared to a situation that you cannot even predict and that will be tough, and that unless you have that extra drive can be like very difficult. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think, yeah, we don't have that much time left, so I would like to start getting into some final questions that I usually like to ask.
Yeah.
This will be some sort of like shift from what we have been talking, because like these are some lighter questions in some way. But yeah, like just the first one is, what is a book, movie, like music album, anything that you have like recently enjoyed that you can share?
Um, well, on TV, I think like one of the latest things that I've been watching that I really like, it's Outlander. Um, it's I don't know if you've seen it. Probably you haven't because it's a
I
cheesy.
haven't.
Yeah, you won't. Um, I'm sure it's cheesy but good. I think like it involves time travel. You need to believe the premise in order to follow the show, because if you don't believe like someone can travel through stones, don't even keep watching, because it's like it's all like based on that. Um, but it's kind of like a love story with time travel connected, and I think like it's just this idea of like history in a way, like making it digestible, that I
Mhm.
like. And obviously like I love romance, so I think like when you connect those two, like it just makes it easy to follow. I have to confess that I don't watch TV that much. I mean, I do, but like I don't have a lot of time for it. So whenever I do, I think I use it as escape rather than as a,
Mhm.
oh, I'm gonna or I'm gonna watch for something super interesting. I mean, yes, certain movies are super good, and I still enjoy watching movies. It's one of my passions. But when it's about like disconnecting, I watch things that it's more of like, I can binge like one episode after the other,
Mhm. Mhm.
and it always comes after tennis. So
Ah.
that's a catch. Like when you don't have a lot of time to watch TV and you want to catch tournaments and you want to catch good matches, it's just hard. Like your time kind of like, like it just like minimizes. So yeah,
Mhm.
I've been watching tennis. I could tell you a lot of that.
No, no, no.
Latest
Sure.
tournaments and everything. So yeah, that's where like my spare time for video goes most of the time.
Mm. Uh-huh. Cool. No, thanks for sharing that. I think that I already knew that you liked tennis. I didn't really remember that, but now that you mention it, I remember that I knew that before. Then like, what is something, this can be related to what we talked about, like given your experience advertising and like your experience in life in general, or like related to any topic, but what has been something that you have learned or discovered recently that you have like really found valuable and that you like to share?
You know what? I think it's a rediscover. I was talking to a friend like a week ago, and we were talking about our experience in advertising and things that we've learned through the years, or like good advice that we got. And it just reminded me of like my first agency. I started working at a small to medium sized agency in Mexico. And I was fortunate enough to have great mentors there. And one of them told me once to like never fall into what he called the brick syndrome, which is el síndrome del ladrillo.
Uh-huh.
And it's basically like not believing that by making a step you have made it. Like I remember him telling me like, oh, there's a lot of people, especially in advertising, that once they have like one success, like one award, one great campaign, they feel like they have made it, and they just basically take themselves a little too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was great advice. Like I don't necessarily think I would have got there. Like I don't think that's who I am, but I do feel like this industry, it's it's an industry where the easy flattery comes very, like often. Like it's just easy to get a lot of like, I wouldn't call them fake like comments, but it's just easy to feel sometimes that you are like too good or like too important or like too of something. And I think I learned that really, really early in my career, and I appreciate it a lot. I think it's an advice that it has just stayed with me. Like, don't believe that because you have made one big step, that's it. Like, you can always keep learning, you can always keep growing. And honestly, like, it doesn't matter like who you are or like what position you have gotten to. Like, I think you're never too important. Like I think like that's, and it's not like I don't have self-confidence, but I think it's just to always put things in perspective. So I think like that would be it. Like it was very important to me. I think it marked me. Yeah.
Do you feel that that helped you to keep pushing through that first stage in LA, like when it was hard, and then like through the rest of the years to be able to keep growing in the agency?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's it's part of that, and it's also this. I think like I see it in advertising. Like you do keep learning, like every day, because every time you start working with a new client, you know nothing. Like you may know the fundamentals of advertising, but you need to learn their business. You need to learn, like how they make money, like how their product works, like how the category works, like a lot of things. And I feel like that keeps you humble. It keeps you learning and realizing that there's so much knowledge out there that you really have no clue about. I mean, I feel like I'm really close to being ignorant, to be honest, because you do realize how much it's out there, and also how much people that truly have gotten to learn know versus you trying to learn a little bit of everything. So I think like that's just a little bit of the syndrome of being in advertising as well. Like you feel like you know a little bit of a lot, but not really much of one thing. And I think like that just keeps you honest. So yeah, I think like that kept me going here. Also, just living in a different country gives you a lot of insights about life and people in general. And I think like that's fascinating. Like just even realizing like simple things as like I remember going to Houston and reading like as I was driving to a focus group like washeteria, and I was like, what the heck is that? And I mean Spanish gives you a lot of those, but I feel like it's just being open to something different of what you knew or expected. To me, the Hispanic market has done that. I think like I came here with a very stereotypical view of what Hispanics are in the US, and it has completely changed my perspective of many things. But it's their hard work and like their commitment like to life that it really opened my eyes to a lot of things. I think like it just made me feel like wow, like honestly you have it super easy. Like the least you can do is work hard. Like really.
Yeah, it's great to be able to highlight these moments of like having a bigger perspective to a bigger perspective for yourself, so that you like are able to shift how you're operating, like in what you're doing, or like in who you are as a person in general. So thanks for sharing that. And like just one last thing, as I told you, my podcast is called Coffee Lounge, and so thinking of a question coffee related, I was like, okay, yeah, sure. I want to ask like what coffee bean or preparation, or what coffee in general is like your favorite or go-to coffee, and what's like your favorite situation to drink coffee at, or like yeah, what's your favorite place, maybe a coffee shop, your house, whatever.
Um yeah, I love coffee as well, me. So this is a little bit of an unfair question. So I love Nespresso. So like my go-to in the mornings, it's the, and my best friend says that this is ridiculous, I have to say, but I still stand by it. A half decaf or a half calf pot. Uh, it's kind of like with intensity of 5 to 6. I don't like it to be super bitter, super intense, but it has to have a kick. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I love milk in my coffee still. I think it comes from
Mm-hmm.
being Hispanic and like café con leche. So that's like in the mornings I either do the half calf or I go like straight to um, fully caffeinated, and then I move to have decaf by mid morning. But after that, I just go with decaf for the rest of the day. I've been able to manage my addiction to coffee, so I went through a detox period and I stopped drinking as much as I did. I used to drink 8, 9 coffees a day. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. So now, like, I capped it at 3 cups a day. Sometimes I go to the fourth one, but I really try to keep it to 3 max. And that's on the day to day. But my favorite moment is at my parents' house. It's going back to Mexico and just having coffee with my mom, with my parents. Like, they have a beautiful garden, and it's just kind of like that peaceful moment. I know it's related to coffee. I work in the coffee category, so like it's unfair because I know this is kind of like a general insight. But it's true to me as well. I think like coffee has a ritual to it, and
mm-hmm.
the moment of enjoying coffee, like nothing compares to it to me. So enjoying that with the people you love, to me, like it's just hard to beat. Like either it's like at home with my parents or whenever I get to see my best friend in Mexico, like we usually like go
Mm-hmm.
there to eat or like to have a coffee. I just think like it's the moment. It's sharing the moment what makes the difference. So yeah, I mean I love the
Sure.
product itself, but the moment triumphs for sure.
Sure. No, I love both of those. Like, really coffee for the flavor and the connection, especially like in my case, I would say that for me is in my grandparents' house. Like drinking coffee, there is like that connection moment. So yeah, like thanks for coming on the show. Is there anything else you would like to add?
Yeah, I just want to ask you, what is your favorite coffee? Like your like.
Ooh. Well, so my favorite coffee bean is probably from Veracruz. I don't know. I just have had like many coffees from that are made with coffee beans from Veracruz. So that's like something I like. I like flat whites. That's like the method that I usually like. I don't prepare myself flat whites. I usually use like either a French press or my Nespresso as well. So yeah,
Oh,
I
that's
try
good to
to like
hear. This is
yeah,
me and my
I try
coin.
like
See,
to
I'm a nerd. Like I support
no no
the
uh,
company.
yeah. And then moments it's probably like yeah either drinking it with someone I enjoy spending time with, or like just by myself in my garden early in the morning, like when the sun is just like coming out. That's like a very peaceful moment that I enjoy a lot. So yeah, no, thanks for asking.
Good. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming.